Hi there. If you're like me and believe we need to transition the world towards using sustainable energy sources, you understand that fossil fuels will inevitably run out, and there are environmental costs that are involved in using non-renewable sources of energy. It is therefore important to transition towards using renewable energy sources to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. This video will provide an overview of hydrogen as an energy source, presenting both the pros and cons, and will include the processes of turning hydrogen into energy. This video will also cover the barriers facing hydrogen energy and future government policy. I've included timestamps on the video for your convenience. To begin, let me provide an overview of the issue at hand. Hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table, and it is also the simplest. It is the most abundant element in the universe. However, on Earth, it rarely forms in its simplest form. To create hydrogen, a fuel cell, which is often compared to a battery, undergoes a chemical process to create electricity, water, and heat. This fuel cell is comprised of an anode, cathode, and an electrolyte between them. Then oxygen is passed over the cathode whilst hydrogen passes over the anode. The hydrogen then reacts with the anode, converting it into positively charged ions and negatively charged electrons. The electrons are used as electrical energy, whereas the hydrogen combines with the oxygen to form water. These fuel cells can be used to power any device that uses batteries, such as a car or a mobile phone. In fact, large stationary hydrogen fuel cells can be used as a clean and reliable source of power for cities, towns, and buildings. Fossil fuels in the form of gasoline are what are currently being used in the majority of cars, lorries, and other vehicles. This supply, however, will run out, and there is environmental harm that is directly linked towards fossil fuel use. So wait, why couldn't we just use hydrogen then? Won't that just solve everything? Well, no, and Elon Musk explains why here.
It's just very difficult to make hydrogen and store it and use it in a car. Hydrogen is an energy storage mechanism. It's not a source of energy. So you have to get that hydrogen from somewhere. If you get that hydrogen from water, so you're splitting H2O, the electrolysis is extremely inefficient as an energy process. If you say took a solar panel and use the energy from that solar panel to just charge a battery pack directly, compared to try to split water, take the hydrogen, dump the oxygen, compress the hydrogen to an extremely high pressure or liquefy it, and then put it in a car and run a fuel cell. It is about half the efficiency. It's terrible. So why would you do that? It makes no sense.
Also, at the current moment, a majority of hydrogen is created using fossil fuels. Due to a low density of hydrogen, storing and transporting hydrogen can be very difficult, as Elon Musk said. The lack of current infrastructure makes the creation and distribution of hydrogen challenging. It also prevents early adopters of the technology, and also hydrogen is quite dangerous. So if governments want hydrogen to be the future policy should address infrastructure, create public awareness of the technology, and create incentive systems to implement renewable hydrogen. We have a huge problem on our hands. The current way that the system is run is that fossil fuels will run out, with estimations suggesting that they will run out as early as 2088. But even if we weren't to run out of fossil fuels, our growing dependence on fossil fuels has had a huge catastrophic event on our climate. For example, the use of fossil fuels can be linked to increased sulfur in the atmosphere, which could lead to acid rain. This is bad for everyone. Hydrogen isn't all bad. For example, it's got some key advantages, such as being a non-pollutant, and it reduces our dependence on petroleum imports. It could also be produced on a local scale. Also, fuel cell vehicles produce no greenhouse gas emissions. There are some key disadvantages, however. The availability of hydrogen is limited, and it can also be very expensive to produce. Fuel cell vehicles provide far less energy and therefore result in a shorter driving range, and also they cost more, and new infrastructure will need to be added in order to facilitate these new vehicles. Production of hydrogen. There are a number of methods to produce hydrogen. However, it is likely that the main method of production will be electrolysis. The limitation of this is that it requires electricity to carry out electrolysis, and there is not an abundance of cheap electricity at this current moment. It can be assumed that hydrogen will be produced using a surplus of renewable energy. However, this can only be successful if we are producing large volumes of renewable energy. The efficiency of electrolysis varies between 60 to 80%. Other methods of producing hydrogen include hydrogen from fossil fuels, partial oxidization, gasification, and biochemical production. For a sustainable future, it would be vital to transition to producing hydrogen using renewable energy electrolysis. Hydrogen vehicles. Hydrogen vehicles have the opportunity to have several advantages over electric vehicles. Firstly, hydrogen vehicles can be refueled quicker than electric vehicles. Another advantage is that higher energy density, resulting in the possibility of having a longer range. Assuming that the production of hydrogen is carried out using electrolysis with the energy supplied by renewable energy, this can eliminate dependence on fossil fuels and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Another distinct benefit of hydrogen over battery-powered vehicles is that batteries slowly lose the ability to hold their charge. This is not an issue with hydrogen vehicles. There is a limited selection of hydrogen vehicles, all of which are very expensive compared to their fossil fuel counterparts. Hydrogen safety. For hydrogen to become commonplace, public perceptions of hydrogen must also be that it is safe. Hydrogen is highly flammable. However, due to hydrogen being the lightest element, it quickly ascends into the atmosphere, giving it less time to burn. For decades, hydrogen has been produced and transported safely. For example, Toyota has created extensive research in regards to hydrogen fuel tank safety. Their findings and other fuel sources found that hydrogen is safer than traditional fuel tanks. This is due to hydrogen having less explosive potential than the traditional fuel tank. There are also systems that are put in place to monitor hydrogen leaking in fuel tanks. Challenges faced. As of current, we do not have enough cheap electricity to allow for a large-scale production of hydrogen using electrolysis. To add to this, we do not have enough sources of renewable energy to make hydrogen production sustainable. Initial costs of infrastructure are preventing a start in infrastructure development. This leads to a chicken or the egg issue, as there is no start in infrastructure development, making it impossible for early adopters to start using hydrogen. Costs of purchasing hydrogen-powered vehicles are much higher than fossil fuel equivalents, with costs of refueling also being much higher. Conclusion. There must be further investments in renewable sources of energy that can be used to create hydrogen through electrolysis. It is important to increase public awareness of the damage being inflicted to the environment due to our dependency on fossil fuels. The public must be aware of the environmental benefits of transitioning to hydrogen and the safety of hydrogen, which would increase the likelihood of it becoming widespread. For hydrogen to have a chance at becoming mainstream, companies must fully utilize hydrogen energy, and there must be an initial development in infrastructure, including production of facilities, distribution networks, and easily accessible refueling stations. The government could also provide subsidies and tax incentives that are similar to those for the electric vehicle market, which would allow of early adopters of hydrogen cars, and would allow businesses to reach economies of scale, reducing the prices of hydrogen-powered cars, making them competitive with fuel-powered cars. If you enjoyed this type of video, please subscribe and press the like button. It really helps the channel out.